Mr. Amsami mentioned about the Sepand, which is actually the organization that oversees all of the nuclear weaponization work of the Iranian regime, is actually was formed in February of 2011, and it's the organization that oversees all of the weaponization work. And we exposed this organization in July of 2011. And in November 2011, the IAEA report mentioned it. And in August of 2014, the State Department designated Sepand under Executive Order 13382. Now, having said that, let's look at the work of Sepand, what has happened ever since, especially since the JCPOA. The fact of the matter is that the Sepand continues to work and operate. The entire structure is not only intact, but also the personnel remain to be in place. The head of Sepand, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh Mahabadi, whom we exposed in the early 2000s, he is the one who has been sought by the IAEA for interviews. He's a very elusive guy. He remains the head of Sepand, and he hasn't showed up for interviews. And to the contrary, instead of dismantling, the organization has actually expanded. And both the Ministry of Defense and the IRGC are maintaining capability to build a nuclear bomb. Now, as this is the information as I mentioned to you earlier. Now let's look at Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the person who's sought by IAEA and everybody else. This is Mohsen Fakhrizadeh here, standing next to Mohammad Najjar, the former defense minister in the first term of Ahmadinejad. And this is Ahmad Vahidi, the former defense minister in the second term of Ahmadinejad. He was also, for a period, the commander of the Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guards. And this is Naaman Ghulabi, the Brigadier General of Revolutionary Guards, who is the acting head of the Basij organization. All of them are commanders of Revolutionary Guards, Brigadier General and up. And he is the one who is running the show for Sepand, clearly showing that the entire structure of Sepand is military, is meant to build the bomb. Now, let me talk about the new site that we're revealing today. This site belongs to Sepand, and it's in Tehran, in Sorkhe-Hisar region. And the construction of the site started in 2012 and continued for several years. Now, let's look at the map of Tehran. This is the satellite imagery of Tehran. You can see the capital, Tehran, right here. This is east of Tehran. And this is the location of the new site in Sorkhe-Hisar region. We'll take a look at the larger imagery here. Now, in this image, you can see that this is where Sorkhe-Hisar site is located. Interestingly, this site is located in a whole military zone. This whole entire structure, this whole entire area is controlled by the military, largely by the IRGC. To the south of Sorkhe-Hisar, you have the Khojir missile sites, which is the place that has the two of the largest manufacturing of the missile program of the Iranian regime, namely the Hemad missile industries and the Bakeri missile industries are here. And then to the north of Sorkhe-Hisar, this is where the aerospace organization is there, and also Mahallati industries that, as you can see, the whole area, as I said, is a military zone. Now, let's look at a closer look at the place. This is the Tehran-Damavand highway. And this area is called Sorkhe-Hisar. And the kilometer second, the exit kilometer second is right here. And from here, anyone who wants to enter, this whole area is military, and they have to go through checkpoints. And let's take a closer look at this particular region here. This is where it is. And you can see that right here, you can see the military checkpoint of leading to the site, and then going down all the way from here to the site. Again, this is where they get to actual. So let's take a look at the site itself. This is the site in Sorkh Hisar belonging to Sepand that is involved in the nuclear weaponization work for the Iranian regime. And they have kept it secret, and we're revealing this location today, clearly showing that the nuclear weaponization work continues in Iran as of today. Now, let's take a look at another angle of that site. You can see another checkpoint right here, leading to the facilities, the buildings here. And you can see there's a lot of room around the facility, room to expand, and also keep the site protected from the outside. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the construction started back in 2012. And here is the satellite imagery in May 2012. And you can see it here, very early stages of construction of the site you see here. And this is a closer look of that site, again, in the same date, May 2012. And you can see like moving earth and just, building the foundation, setting up their structure units. And then a year later, this is how much they had developed. A good number of buildings and structures were built in 2013. And this is a closer look at the site in 2013. However, this needed more work, and between 2012 and 2017, they continued the work on this. And around 2017, some sections of the various groups of Sepand, including the geophysics group known as the Chamran group, gradually moved into to this facility. Now, the head of the geophysics group of Sepand is Dr. Mohammad Jawad Zakir, and his deputy is Hamed Aber, who is a geophysics expert. And some of the tasks that they have done is basically underground nuclear tests and the discovery of underground tunnels and registration of impact of explosions. These are all necessary parts of the experiments they need to do in order to build the bomb. And some of the tests they have done, as I mentioned, preliminary explosions, and they conducted tests in 2002 in Semnan. Actually, in Semnan, there is an area that's their conventional missile test place. But the IRGC has a separate unit that has cordoned off for their own purposes, and that Sepand actually uses the IRGC sprawling fence area to test the explosives in that place. Now, in terms of the equipment, they have ground penetrating radar, or GPR. They have CG5 gravity meters. And they have imported the equipment illegally from outside of other countries. They have purchased under another country's name and moved them to one country and then moved them from there nearby to Iran. And they have done, secret and illicit purchase of military-grade sensitive seismometers that is essential for their work. So now. So the new site says a few things. First of all, that the activities of the different sections of Sepand has actually expanded. They have a new facility, new equipment, and also they are able, by putting the site in a military location, they actually found an appropriate cover to keep the commutes and the identities of the people who come and go to the site So it could easily be hidden because there are so many other facilities, military facilities in the region, and so they won't stand out by having the site located there. Now, the original location of the geophysics group was actually in Mojde site. Mojde site, which we exposed in 2008 in a press conference by the National Council of Science of Iran. And we showed that some 11 or 12 different activities related to the nuclear weaponization work, which was originally done at the Lavizan Shian, has now moved to Mojde. And Lavizan Shian itself, we revealed in 2003, but the regime, before they allowed the IAEA, they had to raise all of the buildings and everything and move most of the work to Mojde site here. The activities, the operations of Sepand and the kind of nuclear weaponization work they're doing has been of great interest to the International Atomic Energy Agency, because the possible military dimensions, or PMD, is really the core of the Iran regime's nuclear weapons program, and that's where the Iran regime has been most elusive, has hidden things, has cleaned up things, has been lying and cheating, and has never came out clean on that. And a range of questions regarding the PMD was never really answered in 2015, leading to the JCPOA. So that Mojde site, which was the original location of geophysics group, had a two-story building at the time, and they had vacuum equipment and other electronic and drone devices were kept there, and on the first floor, and some staff of the electronics groups were based on the upper floor, all of them from Sepand. Now that site, all of those activities have now moved, as I said, to Sorkh Hisar. You can see that's where Mojde was, right in the middle of the city, now to this military zone, with much better control, expanded buildings, expanded facilities, and room to also expand further down the road. Now, let's talk about the second site that we want to elaborate more. You can see the map of Iran here. Here's the location of the site that was exposed a couple of years ago, known as Marivan site, near the city of Abadeh. It's also referred to as Abadeh site. This is the site that, after it was revealed 2 years ago, gained tremendous interest from the IAEA, because all of the documents and everything show that they had done a number of tests that would be useful for making nuclear bombs. And the IAEA, once they repeatedly posed their request to the Iranian regime, and the Iranian regime started playing games with them. Now, let's take a closer look at that location. This is the Marivan site near Abadeh. You can see this is the township or city of Abadeh here. This is in the Isfahan province. This is where the site is located, and that's Isfahan, the very large city, the capital of Isfahan province. Now, let's take a closer look at the Marivan site. This is a larger view of that, and you can see this highway going to Shahreza. And then, now what we have found out is that, and this is the new information that I want to reveal today, is that this whole site, the entire vicinity, the whole entire area surrounding it, which is a very large area, is completely controlled by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. No locals are allowed to this area. Even the belongings there, including the stone mines and other things, are owned by the Revolutionary Guards. All the roads leading to that are controlled by them. The areas are fenced with barbed wires, and no one is allowed there. Now, and here's a closer look of the site. This is an imagery back in early 2019. As you can see, all of the buildings and the facilities in the site, that the IAEA was very interested in it. Now, this site, our new information shows that the site was actually built by the Revolutionary Guards under the supervision of Admiral Ali Shamkhani, who at the time, some 20 years ago, was the Minister of Defense and Logistics under Muhammad Khatami. And the IRGC's Khatam al-Anbiya garrison was involved in the construction of this site. Now, Khatam al-Anbiya garrison does most of the construction of the various facilities, including nuclear facilities of the Iran regime, including military sites and missile sites. And the task for building that site was also given to Khatam al-Anbiya garrison engineering department. That's a big red flag and telling you what's really going on there, because every time you have the IRGC and the Khatam al-Anbiya garrison working for Sepand, all of them are big red flags. And we know that an IRGC engineer, his last name is actually Hashemi Tabar, he's in charge of the secret projects of the IRGC in terms of like construction of their tunnels and secret sites and all of that. And they were the ones, he's the one who actually handled this project. And they built very large concrete infrastructure, buildings and things there that could be used, that were used for high explosive tests. And that's why the IAEA was extremely interested in this site. And as I said, no one is allowed there. Local people are not allowed to be there. And anything located there are actually controlled by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Now, this site is linked with the Center for Research and Expansion of Technologies and Explosions and Impact. The abbreviation in Farsi is METFAZ. And the interesting thing is that we found out that a key METFAZ expert, his name is Saeed Borji, he's well known now. After we exposed him in 2008, he's well known to the non-proliferation community, well known to the IAEA and others who are actually looking for him. He's the one who actually worked on high explosive testing involved with Mariban. Saeed Borji and two other Sepand experts, one of them is Khodadad Meyhami, and the other one is Hassan Ghafouri. They actually worked, three of them worked on a project related to METFAZ in 2011. Remember, all the evidence that existed before related to this site, dated back to early 2000. But our information relates to 2011, that Saeed Borji and two others were actually working on a project there. And within internal reports in Sepand, they said that these people, Borji and the others, they were working on a project that project is called Ahmadabad. Now, we've been working on this and figuring out where is Ahmadabad and the project, and we have been following this issue for a long time, and we now believe that it's most likely, with high likelihood, that Ahmadabad is actually Abadeh. Ahmadabad is actually Mariban. So that puts a new light, because when you bring in Saeed Borji with the whole history and the background of him, that clearly adds a very important new element to the information related to this site and how the regime has tried to keep everything secret about this facility. Just to say a few words about Saeed Borji, that he was the one who was also involved with the explosive chambers in Parchin military site near Tehran, and he worked with the Ukrainian expert Danilenko, and the IAEA was very interested in the work that he was doing, And now you can see his footprint here in the case of this site in Mahabadi. Now, after the IRGC became aware that this site had been actually revealed, it suddenly destroyed all of the facilities in that location in July 2019. Actually, some of the satellite imagery existing from June 2018, as revealed by some of these, nuclear institutions, you can see that the facilities do exist as of June 2019, but June 2019, the facility exists, and July 2019, everything is entirely erased and destroyed. So why? Clearly the IRGC was afraid, and now that the IAEA is on it, now that they're insisting to go there and inspect it, they may actually very well find the fact that the Iran regime was actually doing nuclear weapons work there. So that's why they destroyed it. And it took about a year for the regime for sanitizing the whole place and clean up from July 2019 when they destroyed the buildings until they allowed the IAEA just a few days ago, on August 26, 2020, to visit the place. And this is not the last time that the Iran regime has done this kind of work. So the bottom line of our revelation, what it shows is actually that when it comes to Sepand, the work has continued. And when it comes to Sepand, the work has actually expanded. When it comes to Sepand, the regime has actually created new sites, and they have continued to hide and cheat. And the PMD, possible military dimensions, which is the core of the nuclear weaponization program of the Iranian regime, remains even more relevant now than it has ever been. Remember, the possible military dimensions of the Iran regime's questions were never answered, leading to the JCPOA. Those questions were basically pushed under the rug, and no one really touched it. It has now been revived with this new information, new revelations. And unfortunately, it's very clear that if Sepand, which is the core of nuclear weaponization work of the Iran regime, thrives, the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime thrives. So I hope that this information that we put out today would shed light on the continued weaponization work of the Iran regime, the fact that they never abandoned their nuclear weapons program, and they continue to do to work as of now. So with that, I would like to get to our Q&A session. I'd like to ask our media center to basically tell us, who has questions. Those of you the journalists who have joined Zoom, you may either post your question on Q&A mechanism, or you can raise your hand and raise your question. Those who are watching the event, the journalists who want to pose their questions, you can email your questions to media@ncrius.org. Again, media@ncrius.org. So let's see if we can hear from our media center to see what questions are there that I can try to address them.
Yes, good morning, everyone. We have a question from Mr.
Do we have
Ray.
the sound from our media center?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, Ali Reza?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yes, perfect. We have a question from Ray Hanina from Arab News. Question is, how far along are the Iranian regime in building a nuclear weapon at this new secret site?
Well, it's very difficult to give a time and how far along they are in building a nuclear bomb. But there's a term they say, like a breakout time, that is the time that takes for the Iran regime to enrich enough uranium, enough fissile material for one bomb, is now shortened. It's based on the latest IAEA report, and the analysis done based on that is about 3-4 months, much shorter than it was before. And of course, that's only one part of the requirement for building the bomb, because fissile material needs to turn into, you have to weaponize it, you have to be able to build a nuclear warhead. But the significance of this, aside from the timing, is that, we can talk about enriched uranium, we can talk about, how many kilograms of uranium they have, what kind of centrifuges they have. But all of that would become extremely meaningful if the weaponization work is in place. And I think the revelation today showed that the nuclear infrastructure that is tasked entirely with weaponization, with building the bomb, which the core of that program is SEPAND, the organization is SEPAND, and the program continues to thrive. No parts of that program has ever been dismantled. It was never dismantled in 2015. It has never been disbanded afterwards. It clearly shows that the nuclear weaponization work has been continuing before the JCPOA, during the JCPOA, and has continued after the JCPOA. So this should be very, very alarming to everyone, that don't just limit yourself to the JCPOA and whether, this part was complied or not complied, even though the Iran regime is high non-compliance with the JCPOA itself. But we need to look at even a bigger picture, which is the nuclear weaponization work, as we demonstrated today, that is still continuing. Next question, please. Yes,
there's a question from Andrew Lawton from True North. Andrew is asking, is there a mechanism under the current agreement for inspectors to assess these facilities based on your evidence?
Well, it's very clear the IAEA can request access to the sites, and the Iran regime can respond either the way they have responded so far, that they have denied access to most of the sites that the IAEA has asked to visit, or the people that they wanted to interview, or responded to their questions, outstanding questions, most of which actually relates to PMD, possibility dimensions of the program. Now, this one, we believe the IAEA should definitely request to have access to this site, because this is part of the larger program of weaponization of the Iran regime. This is related to SEPAND. This is related to METFAS, which, as we said before, does heavy work on PMD for the Iranian regime. And we hope that the IAEA will now take up the information today and pursue the request to visit the site later on. But also the information revealed about the site in Abade and Marivan. This is very, very useful in combination to whatever they have found out on the ground through their inspections. And I know most of the things could have been destroyed by the time the IAEA actually got there, because the buildings were destroyed and the place has been sanitized. But still, sometimes, even with every effort the regime does, some elements may still be there. But I think this new element, the fact that the Revolution Guards were involved in building the site in Marivan, and the involvement of METFAS and the involvement of the top experts of METFAS like Saeed Borji, the fact that the IRGC and Shamkhani, the former defense minister and now senior advisor to Khamenei, military advisor to Khamenei, they've all been involved in building and maintaining the place, are actually very relevant. Any other questions?
We don't have any more questions, Ali Reza, right now.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending our press conference today, and the information about this will be available on our website, and the entire press scope of video of the press conference will be available, and also the text of the press conference, which has a lot more details than what I actually had time in about half hour to share with you, is also going to be available later on our website. Again, thank you all very much for attending this press conference, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.